All right, so we're just going to go ahead and get started here. My name is Mike Clear. I am one of the co-founders of Exergy with Dylan and Tyler. And thank you all for joining us today. We're going to talk about building the Heatpunk workforce, something that's probably a necessity if we want to see through a lot of projects that are being managed by folks in this room. And I think one of the challenges that everyone can understand, whether you are really into Bitcoin or you just have a fiat job, is that when you go to college, they teach you what you came to study. And then you go get a job and you have to relearn everything. And that's at your expense and your employer's expense. So we're at a really interesting crossroads right now where we need to educate existing technicians and potentially build a whole new workforce. And hopefully we can overlap the experience of the folks on stage here with the people who are actually building in the real world to mesh those together so we can get a closer match. Never going to fix that problem. It exists in every industry. But that's what I hope to get out of today. And essentially, I'd like to start out by just working down the line. We can start with you, Shanon, one in, and have everybody introduce themselves, say where you're from, and generally what you do, and then we'll dive in with some questions.
So I'm Shanon Squires. I'm the Chief Mining Officer at Compass Mining. I'm based locally. Oh, I got to get closer. There we go. So Chief Mining Officer at Compass Mining, based kind of locally, just outside of Denver. We run a service center here and have, I don't know, a dozen plus facilities across the country, running Bitcoin mining and everything you can associate with Bitcoin mining. So I guess that's a good start.
Yeah, I'm Michael, or Bitstorian as people call me. I'm professor of history and Bitcoin, so that's hence the Bitstorian. So I teach Bitcoin, been teaching it for a few years at Binghamton University, and yeah, it's a fine start.
Hi guys, I'm Aadhi. So I'm actually a student at Binghamton University, and I also work at Proof of Print. I design miners and make them open source.
I'm Matt Skrlac. I work at the Center for Blockchain and Digital Innovation at the University of Wyoming. I'm the Bitcoin lead, so I particularly focus on all our Bitcoin programming, curriculum, and generally supporting our degree program.
Awesome. So I'm going to start with our first question. Bitcoin education is actually starting to show up in academia. Depending on who's in control of that, that could be a blessing or that could be an absolute curse for everyone in this room. I'm curious to know, what does that curriculum look like, and how much is actually taught about miners and the mining protocol in the space right now today? And we might start on the other end and work our way back to our industry man here.
Yeah, so in terms of actual curriculum, we have a degree program in blockchain technology, and then that starts with Bitcoin, obviously encompasses other things. But as part of that, I run different trainings on Bitcoin mining, in particular introducing them to Bitcoin mining. We've been using bit axes, things like that for students. But then also coming in and kind of giving students an idea about what the industry is, what it looks like, where it's going. Trying to get students engaged with things like the Heatpunk movement, just so they get a general idea about that. And then the nice thing about our center is we offer a degree program to all the schools of the university, so it's not particularly focused on one academic area. So that allows us to branch out into areas like our School of Energy Resources, engineering, computer science, along with finance, and then traditional humanities. So yeah, we try to cover that broad topic and give students an opportunity to engage with it from multiple angles.
Yeah, as a student, it's like really good that universities are like taking initiative to teach about Bitcoin. And the thing is that what I observed is like mostly the universities like focus on the blockchain side, and not a lot of the universities know about the mining side. So I actually think that we need like more like courses on mining, and because that's the whole like backbone of Bitcoin.
Yeah, well, our campus is our education in Bitcoin mining. It's a little bit unfair, the advantage we have, because of course we have Aadhi on our campus. So our Bitcoin mining education is probably above others. But we face a lot of challenges, and I try to teach Bitcoin mining in classes, but universities don't like it. And as far as I know, there aren't many or any universities really with a Bitcoin education program in the United States. There's no majors or minors or other degree programs in Bitcoin. So being able to teach mining is difficult. And we do it sometimes in workshops, and then I get in trouble. And then they forget about it, and then we do it again, and then I get in trouble again. And then we do it on another campus. Aadhi did it up at Cornell. We did that last semester, and we'll do it again next month. But I just wanted to say also before handing it over that what Anna is doing is so important. It really helps, actually, it helps mining education on campus, because it helps, especially in a place like New York. Bitcoin is a bad word. It's a very dirty word. Once you say Bitcoin, it's over. Yeah, for Anna to come in and talk about the stuff that she talks about here, for me to bring that back and to show people the work she's doing, it's so important for mining education and just generally for the world as my family now, much of my family now sits again in shelters in Israel in the kibbutz because of another pointless war, living under an authoritarian regime of Netanyahu. But those are just topics of the day. So, yeah, but...
Yeah, actually, before you hand it over to Shannon, I think there is something to be said there, and that is that we are incredibly privileged to be in the blue section of your map. But the other thing to keep in mind is that education in the United States and generally globally is state-sponsored, right? So whether that's state or federal, a lot of influence as to how they get their money ties into what we do. And something that everyone in the room can proactively do, just show of hands, how many people undergrad or postgrad in the room? Hopefully everybody, right? Yeah, not hopefully. I don't want to judge anyone who's not. So here's the reason I'm saying hopefully, is every year you get a phone call where they ask you for money, and you can give them an ultimatum, right? If they add Bitcoin to the curriculum, you'll give them money. So think about that, because if enough people say that, it actually will come true. But I'll hand it back to you.
No, if someone would have told me in 2017 when I got into this that colleges would have anything to do with Bitcoin education, I would have said you're full of shit. I don't know if I can, sorry. Like, it's absolutely absurd and mind-blowing the fact that there's Bitcoin education at any college or university, period. Like, it's crazy that it's happening this fast. And like this, just a quick shout out to the space and the people putting this event on. There's more people sitting in this room listening to this than most people get talking at, you know, Bitcoin, Miami, Vegas, any of that stuff. So kudos to the people who showed up to this, and awesome work at the space. Like, this is phenomenal.
So I'm going to reverse order again here, but this is more of a practical question. So as the hash rate heating industry grows and other practical applications to get Bitcoin mining into industry, how do you feel about the need for a new line or category of service tech? Do we need to add a minor repairman to our suite of services? Or do they fold into plumbing, mechanical, HVAC, electrical? Curious how you guys feel about this.
Yeah, so it's super interesting. Like, we have sites all over the U.S. and Canada. You had them in Canada, all that fun stuff. And the biggest thing is when we bring on technicians, we start from the ground up. Like, we just got to teach them everything. And over the years, we've noticed that, well, we need them to be able to do more electrical, more HVAC, more plumbing-related tasks. And so as we look at hiring, anybody who's worked in the trades, hey, I was a laborer for this HVAC company, things like that are like, hey, that moves you to the top of the list, right? So for us, we look at it more like the, you know, trades guys that are out there that are good and, you know, doing good work, and they want to just add this piece. That's the type of people we want. I want to see those guys being able to troubleshoot miners. You know, it's pretty straightforward, replacing fans, PDUs, control boards. Gets a little technical reading logs. I don't expect them to be like desoldering chips and things like that. But I see it going more that direction of like those guys just learning that piece of it and just adding it to their repertoire, and that's probably going to be the most valuable, because those trades jobs are becoming more and more valuable in everything, every industry.
I don't have too much to add on that, except that working at a research university is probably going to be better to separate those positions if we want to be able to teach this, yeah, again, at like major research universities like ours.
Just to add on that, the thing is that my view is that all four like positions like combined are important for like heat punks like us, because we need electricians to like supply power to the miners. Plumbing is necessary for hydronics and HVAC for air conditioning and all that. Because I feel like the thing is that we should like teach every single one of them like how to like use a miner and how to operate them, so that they could also like learn how to do it. And just in case like if we have like a minor failure and we have like a HVAC guy near who knows like how to use these, he could just like come in, pop in, and fix him and go right away.
Yeah, so I think I really agree with Shannon that it's going to be the traditional trades, I think, that can really benefit from this. Is just adding another piece of what they can do. There certainly will always be a role for mining technicians, but that's kind of the approach the University of Wyoming is also trying to take, is to provide a skill set and understanding of Bitcoin in general, but also Bitcoin mining to these different skill sets. So it's a tool in their toolbox. And as these students go out into the workforce, whether they start their own businesses, go join an architecture firm or any other trade or something like that, that this is another skill set they have. And also the University of Wyoming, we kind of have a unique relationship with our trade schools and community colleges in Wyoming. Being the sole university, we help partner with the state in directing what we can do with curriculum and pushing things out to the smaller schools so they could be more specialized on a trade or a practical skill set while we can do some of the research up at the University of Wyoming. But yeah, that's kind of the role we look at it, is we can just push this out to existing trades and schools, and so they can build a skill set off that. I think that's probably where it's going to go.
Awesome, thank you. I think the next question is kind of dovetails into the prior one, and I'll just give an anecdote here. As the business development and sales guy for Exergy, I can tell you that we need technicians in this space, because I have single-handedly broken probably 2 or 3 of our installs on day one, with the entire team there to witness me destroy a $4,000 machine. So we need these people, and that leads me into the next question, which is, how complicated are these machines? Will we really need specialized mining techs, or do we need the workforce to just have more engineers and more designers that can make better equipment that doesn't need to be so damn complicated that I'm going to break it every time I turn it on?
Yeah, I think from a service standpoint, it would look very much like, if you're running someone's house as a plumber and you're going to do a repair, you have a van full of most of the common parts, right? And then like your hardware stores have some stuff that's extra, it's down the street, you can go pick up. I think it's pretty straightforward. If you're installing a bunch of Watts miners into heating systems or amp miners, and you just keep some PSUs in your truck, you keep some control boards in your truck, you keep some fans, or you guys don't use fans. You keep these common parts, and they're just bolt-ons, right? You unscrew them, you screw them back on, you plug them in, it's working. From that standpoint, I feel it's super basic. I think my kids can do this. My 10-year-old daughter has no problem pulling fans off a miner and doing things like that. Super plug and play. This hard part is, okay, I did all the easy stuff, and now it's something still not working. That's where problem-solving skills come in, right? And that's the biggest piece, is like being able to think through a problem. Okay, what's the next thing I got to figure out? And then it gets to more technical side. Just like you show up to fix someone's boiler at their house, and you may not have the control board for the computer, and you can't figure out why it's working. Now you got to call the manufacturer, get a new control board out, or whatever the piece is that's broken. And I think it becomes a very normal, just like any other service business we had, whether it's electrical, plumbing, doesn't matter, especially if you're serving like retail homes, which I think this is where like in-home radiant heating is like, this is a no-brainer. Like it's super straightforward. I think for a long time, homeowners will probably be sketched out to like, oh, I got to fix a Bitcoin miner. And like, nah, I'll just show up and fix it like I do everything else. That's kind of the way I see it.
Yeah, my experience is that the hardest part of Bitcoin education is not teaching the students, but the other faculty, the professors. They just don't want to learn about anything. And I don't think the machines are hard. People are just lazy. And so how do we connect with people at the lazy level? And especially, the parents, right? They're the biggest problem with education. They're the ones calling the university and saying, I heard there's a Bitcoin program. I'm going to stop funding and giving my money if that's really the case. That's really what happens. That's what happened. That's what my dean told me. So anyways, I think they're not so complicated. It's, luckily, your daughter has a father that knows this stuff, and it's great, but they need to be even simpler. So simple that, I don't know, maybe a 3-year-old since a 10-year-old can do it. But I think that just on that, like, as I mentioned with what Anna is doing and this stuff, in talking to people about the sort of moral and political reasons of why Bitcoin is important, that's awesome, that's amazing, but it only goes so far, right? There's only so much moralizing people want to hear about why you should do something. I teach students this all the time, like, instead of us, for writing history, why should you learn history? Oh, because this, and it's great, and that's bullshit. Like, you should learn history because it makes you money, right? And how does it make you money, and yada, 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 and so on. So I think that we need to really balance that side with the other side of making really, really, really easy machines that people realize, if I put a little bit of effort into, I can make more money, and that's it.
So I've had like great experience like teaching my friends like how simple the machines are. So the thing is that what they think is that it's a complicated piece of machinery with each and every chip doing individual job, and you have like a main control board like that sends like every information out. It's just like a simple computer that sends like job to a big ass board, and yeah, that board's like does your job, gives you a result, and that's it. That's all like mining does. So these machines are like really not complicated. If you like understand them, it's really simple concept.
Yeah, I think a big thing here, and what I love that gets pushed here so much is open sourcing is a huge deal, and standardization. I think those are going to be really big components in scaling, particularly the Heatpunk side. I think they're kind of necessary because there is friction points, and while we're orange-pilled and all that, and we can get into these machines, we're willing to learn them, there are friction points for a lot of people that are going to be barrier to entry to doing anything with this. So I think continuing to hammer that we need to open source the hardware, the firmware, and all those components of it are going to be a huge component of scaling this. And I think it's inevitably going to happen. And when it does, that's when this has a real potential to scale. And not that universities are going to play a big role in that, but certainly I hope that they can encourage it through the work that we do.
So if I summarize that, what I'm hearing is that Bitcoin miners are like TI-84 calculators that just consume 10,000 watts, and you can hack them, and they pay you. That's what I'm getting out of this, and I'm grateful for that. So again, dovetailing into that same theme, mining operations are famously low maintenance compared to DevOps, high power compute. If you're running Facebook, it can't go down, right? Mining operations are different from that. Do you think this translates when we decentralize, if we have everyone's home in here, hopefully next week, with a hash rate heater, does that apply? Or is there an inverse correlation when we decentralize? I've been telling them which way to go, and I didn't do it this time.
We need simple directions. And so, I mean, I might disagree a little bit. Like, on operating Bitcoin mining farms, your computers break all the time. Like, they're always breaking. Your NVIDIA GPU servers break, or your H100, whatever fancy computer you're using at your traditional data center, doesn't break as often, right? So it's a different thing. Like, the guys working at Bitcoin mining farms are constantly repairing and troubleshooting these computers, whereas at a traditional data center, it's much more IT infrastructure. Why is this IP address not reporting? Why can't I see this computer online? Why isn't producing enough work? So it's a lot more technical, can be done a lot more remote versus hands-on. I think that's a big balance. And then I forgot your question.
So yeah, it's basically just well, you disagreed with it, so I don't know if you can answer the other half, but does it translate to, the maintenance level that's going to be required as we decentralize, as we put hash rate heat or mining into other industrial applications?
I mean, ultimately, like, it's something like this is a world right now. Like, Bitcoin was amazing because you could go from any other industry into this, right? It doesn't matter what you were doing before, you can jump into this. I think that's a lot harder on like the traditional data center space, and they produce a ton of heat too, and they just evacuate it to water and then to air or whatever they're doing. A lot of them don't even focus on a whole lot of heat reuse, whereas like this is becoming a core principle in Bitcoin is how do we use this heat? So I think ultimately, like, having the trades get involved is going to reduce maintenance costs for Bitcoin mining, especially for homeowners, and then potentially us as well. Like, if I can call a service tech to come out and work on a miner who also works at someone's house down the street, that's going to be awesome.
Yeah, well, kind of building on my theme of before is I don't think it's going to be low enough maintenance yet. It needs to be lower and lower and lower, and I think something we don't talk about is how we live in capitalism. In capitalism, it produces waste. It's the number one thing it produces, right? Well, profit and then waste. People will just throw things away, right? When I give students bit axes and it takes them more than 2 minutes to figure it out, they just toss it aside. And when, you know, a toaster breaks in your house or whatever, you don't fix it, you just buy a new one. So we need to create cheaper home miners that when they break, people are just going to buy a new one. Because in lower maintenance, because we're not everyone's a Bitcoiner like us. Not everyone's going to want to spend 2 minutes of their time reading a booklet or reading something online to try and fix it. They're just going to buy a new one. So it needs to be lower. So I think it will translate, I guess, ultimately to lower.
Yeah, about the low maintenance part, it depends upon what machines do you have. If you have like the better ones like Watts Miner, like MicroBTs and Canaan's like miners, they're really good. Cause I've had like a few reviews from a person who runs like mining farms that they're like, you know, they're like long lasting. They're not like Bitmains. They die out like easily. So if you want like a lower maintenance, mining or home mining setup, probably we want like better high quality miners. That's the main thing.
Yeah, I think probably not so much from like the traditional data center management, but again, I think it's going to be the incorporation of those trade skills and things like that that are going to be the big thing here, and then whether that reduces maintenance costs and maintenance issues. And I think that standardization process too is going to be a big part of it, and changing the form factor of some of this to match like regular household appliances. Those skill sets are going to become more important rather than like a traditional data center skill set.
Thank you. So I'm going to pick on Aadhi, who's our resident student here. Aadhi, you've taken a deep dive into Bitcoin mining development, and I'm curious if you could just share briefly what's been your experience so far.
So yeah, I just like entered the Bitcoin field in like late 2019. So it was through YouTube basically. So I was like too curious on what it is, and that's how I learned like what Bitcoin is and how Bitcoin mining works. And I'm technically a nerd, so I love computers and all that. So I like deep dove into like Bitcoin mining and got to like know a lot about it. And finally, after like one whole year, I was like able to like convince my parents to get me 2 S9s. That's how I started my mining journey. And I started like playing with the clock settings, overclocking it, undervolting it, and all that. And yeah, it's been a great experience around in this field.
So you may have invalidated the answer to the next question, but I'll ask it anyway. Is it as hard as many people think, and including the non-nerds?
For the nerds, it's going to be easy, but for the non-nerds, when you come to the technical side, it's going to be really hard. That was my experience, like that's my view on it.
Perfect. So knowing what you actually know now and what the experiments that you've performed have taught you, what are some blind spots for the Heatpunk movement? What do we need to be on the lookout for that we can save ourselves from through your YouTube and higher educational experience?
So just like one blind spot that I found was the general miners that we use are designed to be used in a data center environment with controlled like airflow, with a cold side and a hot side. So bringing them onto like let's say I want to like heat this building, because there's going to be like uneven airflow and you got to like design everything. So I don't know if that miner would like last in this environment because there's going to be like a lot of temperature fluctuations that matter. Because I think building a product that can handle like all this would be like very important. So for like, let's say Canon's like a home miner like the Avalon 3 Nano is, they're like designed to like heat up your like desk space, and it's really cool that they can like go up to like a really hot temperature and still like work perfectly.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm going to pivot back to our industry man here. Shanon, Compass Mining manages a lot of technicians, at least in my opinion. And I'm curious if you think there's a world where we expand that footprint to hash rate heating, or if we need to take a different path to service all of our machines out in the wild.
I still think the path is probably getting the technicians that are putting the systems together to do it if they're local. I think one of the benefits, and sorry, you asking that question made me think about this as like a business concept, because that's what I do, is, we're geographically spread around. I mean, we have our own facilities, and then we operate for third parties. So I literally have technicians all over the country, right? I think we have 65 plus people on our ops team, including remote support and things like that. So when you look at that, it's like, okay, I do have a guy who's, in Denver. I have a guy in Texas. I have a guy in, Kentucky and Nebraska and all these places. So we already have this geographically dispersed workforce. And so it wouldn't be a difficult thing to like call Shanon and say, hey, I need someone to go troubleshoot this miner.
Yeah, Dylan, write that down. Yeah, I think the takeaway there is that we need techs to know, and we need people like you. And I think this is something that I experienced hardcore in my academic experience going to college, and prior to Exergy and still today, I sell enterprise software to universities. So I've experienced this thing, and it lives in academia and it lives in the real world, which is if you go to someone who knows what they do or thinks they know what they do, so your electrician, your plumber, and you tell them that you're going to do something different, they resist that hardcore, right? They do not want to change the way they know it, and they really don't want to embrace something new. So as the technicians in this room think about that, just keep the mind open, right? We gotta make sure we're ready for the next steps. But I'm going to pivot back to our academics here, and I say that in a nice way, not frowning upon you. You're uniquely within the universities, and I'm curious and this is probably more for you, I'm curious what experiments, data collection, reporting, what can we do to advance the Heatpunk movement? And what have you already done? What can you share about that? From both perspectives of, obviously what's being worked on right now, but also if we think about grants and where we could put our focus, whether it's on campus or with private companies, where do we need to grow there?
I'm going to talk really fast because a lot to say. So one thing you can do is like what we do with Aadhi and our colleague Rick Thomas and Jake Siebert from AirBTC last semester at Cornell. We kind of just crashed a room and met their Bitcoin students and Bitcoin club, and we just turned S19 into Lokis and taught them how to hash rate heat. And then we built it, and then we donated it to them. So their Bitcoin club is now hash rate heating on campus, whether the university knows it or not. But to really scale that, something we don't. There's not enough policy focused around education in a tangible sense with hash rate heating. I pitched to my university, to the associate dean, the idea of hash rate heating the entire campus. Right, 30% of all the electricity we use is just for heating on campus. So I said, let's just use Bitcoin miners, and like, yeah. We need one example, one place, one university, one school, one college where we can come in, where Exergy can come in, and actually convince them to try it out. Because once, and it has to be a big name university, like it has to be a Cornell or a Princeton or something, because other universities follow them. They follow the leader. That's how academia works. And you got to work really hard, and I'm working on it, to convince them to hash rate heat, even just one building, one campus. But first, and there's another rule across every university that I know of, is that you can't mine on campus. Right? And it's that you can't use the university's resources for your own private gain. And they use that every single time to say you can't mine. So we need some legislator somewhere, some state, somewhere to pass a rule to say that this does not mean you can't mine on campus. Once that happens, the dominoes will fall and we can advance hash rate heating on campus.
Thank you. Yeah, and we're gonna wrap up right after you, Matt, but I would like your insight on that as well.
Yeah, I think at the university level, well, more particularly University of Wyoming, where it's a little more friendly, they're a little more open to working with Bitcoin. Obviously, it's a little worse over there. But Wyoming is for the most part pretty open to it, both at the policy side and down to the university level. I think what we could do, and what I'm working on them to do, is get some engagement from the industry and maybe do case studies, different research around feasibility, some economic studies, things like that, where it can help bolster what you guys are doing, where you can come in with some university research. And you know, that's not the end-all, be-all, but it does add a little bit of gravitas to it, a little bit of legitimacy to it. So I think in that way, a supportive university structure could support that. And then, yeah, I encourage more technical data too as well, like what was happening with Binghamton. We don't do a ton of that at the University of Wyoming, but hopefully maybe that's something we can grow into.
So we're gonna do a speed round and then we're gonna wrap it up here. For your institution or to your technical school, where do we focus our energy first? Go.
Probably technical school and then institutions. If there was a good program that just manufactured people to work in this space, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, allow mining on campus. Just get legislation or something that passed that says we can actually mine on campus. From there, everything is going to be open. The students want it. The students are excited about it. But yeah, we need to overcome that hurdle.
We need to do some research on more like Bitcoin mining, you know, like advancing the machines even more, bringing in more efficiency, and that's it.
Yeah, I think that obviously the technical schools are the biggest impact for the industry. I think that's really where you're going to get your bang for your buck. But with the University of Wyoming in particular, again, that unique relationship we have with the technical schools, community colleges, that they look to us for a lot of guidance. So we're allowed to kind of think about what we want to do from the state level. We get directed from the state legislature on certain economic diversification policies and things they want to do. And so with that, we can help facilitate programs in those more technical schools where the University of Wyoming itself won't be doing the technical training, but we can help educate the technical trainers down there and then introduce it to the trades and flow it out from there. So I think that's kind of the unique model we got, and I really like that way of going about it.
Thank you guys so much. So quick round of applause for our panel here.